Welcome aboard the Junglesey train. Just roll with me down the tracks for another amazing adventure in my life. The focus of today's stories are going to be about scout camp. I believe when I was around 13 years old, we actually shared a campsite with another scout troop. A couple of the scouts really annoyed us. They ended up getting water everywhere in our tent, and we were pretty upset about it. We had the idea of pulling a prank on them at night when they went to sleep. Everybody at first was totally in the zone to go pull this prank. And then everybody chickened out, except me. I was committed to this prank thing. I was like, hey, they messed with our tent? No more. I'm gonna do a little razzle dazzle with my prank. I grab a tube of toothpaste and I grab some chocolate. I go over to their tent. They were both sleeping in the same tent. It was like one of those old-fashioned tents on those wooden platforms. They had these little bunks. So I sneak in there. I have my flashlight handy. They are out. They're not waking up. I go through with it. I squirt some toothpaste on both of their sleeping bags. Crumble some bits of chocolate on both of them. The following morning, I knew what happened. These scouts come out of their tent. I was feeling some guilt. One of the scouts got a little bit of toothpaste in his eyes. I am so glad he did not get blinded. Eventually, the guilt had welled up so much. I was thinking, if I don't confess, I'm gonna lose it. So I ended up confessing. My scout leader, of course, was not happy with me, which is understandable. I mean, shouldn't have done it. I was very committed to the prank, but after doing the prank, I regretted doing it. Even though it's kind of funny thinking back. One or both of the kids' sleeping bags got chocolate and toothpaste inside of it. What ended up happening was we had to get one or both of the sleeping bags dry cleaned, like totally cleaned out. That was on me. And it didn't stop there. One of my friends, he wasn't through with one of those two scouts. They got in a little bit of a fight. I think my scout leader broke them apart. So that is story number one. Story number dos. I was 14 years old. I decided to volunteer at a scout camp for the summer. I volunteered for 2 weeks. I got to know some of the scout troops through my time there in the 2 weeks, and that was pretty fun. I don't know why this entered my mind, but I was thinking, you know, I need a new identity. Nobody knows me here. It's a new place. I'm gonna go by a new nickname. My first name being Joe, my middle name being Anthony. I could shorten Anthony down to Tony. Joe Tony. I can just be called JT. And so I went by JT for the next 2 weeks. It didn't feel like me. It didn't stick. A week or two after the volunteer weeks at scout camp, we had an encampment where the older scouts, 14 and above, got to do different fun events. One of the scouts helping out at the scout camp I worked at, he calls over to me at my campsite and he's like, hey JT, how's it going? At first I was like, JT, oh yeah. I didn't like it. I didn't like being called JT. That's my experience trying out a new nickname. To continue the story from there, me and a bunch of us went whitewater rafting. We went over in Montana. It was probably about an hour, hour and a half drive away. We got the safety precautions. We got the life jackets on. We were told some rules to follow, and we had some guides helping us. We get in the rafts. We're going down this river, and some of the rapids we hit are fairly big. At one point, we hit this huge rapid, and I go flying out of the raft, and his hand plunges into the water and grabs hold of my ankle and yanks me back in. It was my scout leader. There is the scout leader's son, just floating along down the river. My scout leader saved me from going out of the raft, but he did not get his son. We ended up getting him back in one of the rafts. He ended up being fine. He didn't get sucked underwater or anything. Later, he told us he wasn't afraid of drowning. He was afraid of getting mercury poisoning by swallowing the water. I can't swallow this water. I'll get mercury poisoning. Fast forwarding a few years later, I was at this scout camp with this one leader who was super fun. We did tons of different types of activities in scouts and even sometimes outside of scouts with our leader. One night we got together and we played a ton of paintball. I was really disappointed because I think I only got hit once. I felt like I was missing out. I spoke to my scout leader and said, you know, I haven't really been hit a bunch. He picked up his paintball gun and he pointed it at me. Start running. What? Start running. I'm like, oh! So I start running and he nails me like 10 times in my back. So that night I had a welt like this big on my back. It felt like fireballs were pelting my backside. I had nothing to complain about after that because I got what I wanted. That day, I was a masochist. I wanted to get pelted with a bunch of paintballs and feel the pain so I could be a man. Ugh. I will close with one more scout camp story. There is this kid at the scout camp who said some really odd things. At one point, he said, if you are early, you are on time. If you are on time, you are late. If you are late, that is unacceptable and you will die, scum. Make sure to be early to scout camp, to your appointments, to work. Otherwise, you will die, scum. Salute and out.